and welcome to this session where we are going to dive into the tactics in the Global Chess League 2024, and we are going to analyze the few moments where there were tactical shots in few games of the Global Chess League 2024, and how those tactics can be executed. What are the plans? What are the positional ideas, and the beauty of those tactics in that particular games. So today's session is much more important for beginner players who are looking for tactical opportunities in their games, who are kind of wondering how these grandmasters and advanced players to implement tactics in their games, and how a particular position can be uh, evaluated tactically, and how we can improve the tactical vision. That will certainly help us, in that crucial games in the tournaments that matter the most. So yeah, let's dive right into it and let's see the first position of the day. Yeah. So the first game that we are going to analyze is played between Vishwanathan Anand and Aliza Firoza in the same Global Chess League 2024. So this game is this position is quite easy. If there are some intermediate players watching this session, they will feel like this is too easy for them. But for beginner players, it's important to understand the dynamics of the position. So if you see here, black's queen is much more active. It's much more closer to the white king. And whereas white has just played, Vishy has played queen d2, trying to trade off this powerful queen on e2 with his queen on d2. And also he needs the queen trade because he has a 2 versus 1 pawn majority on the queen side. So these are some plans with which Vishy has played the last move, where he has played queen to d2. Now, what should Alireza do here? Well, Alireza has a couple of plans here. He can first of all retreat with the queen, keeping the queens on the board, where the position will be much more sharper. Or else he can trade and move into an endgame where he's up a pawn on the king side. Well, Vichy has a queen side pawn majority, so it's the game is likely to end in a draw, or even in some chances if Alireza blunders, these two pawns can prove much more fatal for Alireza. So this is the first and second approach. The third approach here for Alireza is to continue with the attacking approach. So, well, if you feel that the knight and bishop are still not in the game, well, they can come in the game if Alireza puts the best moves on the board. So Alireza does play it. He plays queen to f1 with a check. Now forcing knight to g1, and kind of white is completely passive here. And now Alireza finds the brilliant bishop to c5, and he says, well, okay, you can do a check on d8, just king g7. There is nothing much to add to it, and well, there is no defense against his threat on g1. There is a forced checkmate. If you put a bishop, I'm just going to capture it with my bishop, and again, you'll need to sacrifice the queen, and playing queen downs against any grandmaster is completely useless. So he finds his bishop c5, and he puts a what you can say incounterable attack on the g1 square. So yeah, that's the solution to this puzzle. Again, some things that we need to keep into mind is that always, if your opponent offers a queen trade, it's not necessarily important for you to go for it. You can choose a much more attacking approach, forcing a defensive position for your opponent, and then you can use the pieces in the much best possible way to attack on the most crucial square. For in this position, the g1 square is the much more crucial square. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. It's a game between Pragnananda versus Vidit Santosh Gujarati in the same Global Chess League 2024. Vidit is with the black pieces. He has played queen c6 now, queen captures on c6, and he's offering again a queen trade for Prag, which if Prag takes, let's say if he takes queen capture on c6, there's knight capture on c6, the position will be fairly even and likely to end in a draw. But Prag finds again a beautiful move here. Again, you guys can pause the video to find it, and or you guys can just enjoy the show. Prag, when I saw this position first time, I saw that queen at 7 is quite a good move. I mean, he's kind of going for the g7 pawn, which is too weak, and he's also changing the attention from the center to the right side of the board. But the most important thing to understand is queen to h7 slightly deviates our own queen to the edge of the board, which is not really a good idea. So Prag does the same thing, but he plays queen to d4, now attacking the g7 pawn. Well, if you go with rook f7 as you know, many players would go, Prug's idea is that okay, well, he's not actually attacking the G7 pawn, but he's going to go queen to A7. This is the importance of keeping the queen in the center. And now the problem is, well, you have a checkmate coming. If you go with king to D8, just knight to D5, and the problem is you can't take because of queen to B8 checkmate because the rook guards the nice E5 pretty good. So yeah, again, a very nice example of presence of mind of why you have to keep your major pieces in the center so that they can go to any side of the board whenever required. Let's move on to the next one. Yeah, this is again a game between Alireza Firoza and Karu Nakamura in the Global Chess League 2024. Uh, this is a pretty simple tactic. I mean, a lot of you might have seen such tactics. Again, if we positionally try to determine the dynamics of the position, this is Rook C2, the first move that comes to our mind, trying to attack the bishop, but it leads to bishop captures on d4, or just bishop retreating back, or there are much more options for just even simply pawn captures on e4 is also possible when you play rook c2 because it attacks the e3 bishop. So the other move that comes is, you know, you see this king and this knight, they all are in the L shape. So why not eliminate this knight first for knight e7 check tactic? So that is exactly what Firuza does. He plays rook captures on c6. You have rook captures on c6 by Nakamura, and now comes knight to e7 with a check. The king has to move, and now simply knight captures on c6. Nakamura is up a piece, and he's completely winning the game. I mean, there's not even a chance with pawn captures on d4. Just bishop captures, trades off the bishop. He's up a piece, and he's winning the game. Let's move on to the next one. This is Alireza Firoza again versus Hikaru Nakamura, and you know this is the best thing that one can get here. So what do you do here? Again, it's black to play. Uh, he has offered a trade of rooks here, and well, the best option is to take. So this is such positions are much more important or beneficial for us because they are really easy to calculate when you reach the end game. So first of all, Hikaru takes it. Rook captures on c5. King captures on c5. Now he realizes that the king is much more free to go to the center of the board. So king to e5. The king has to go to f5. Now comes king to f4, king to d3, and king captures on f3, just taking the opposition. King to d2, king captures on g4. And for those who are wondering how to win this game, it's much more simple. I mean, after king to g2, just play. You can play king to g3. That is the best option. King f1 and king h2. Take the three squares into control and just escort your pawn to the winning square. That's a strategy. Let's move on to the next one. It's Ronak Sandwani versus Nihal Sarin. Nihal has just captured on b2, and Ronak has a clear threat. I mean, you guys can just pause the video. This video is not much important of finding how white can threat a mate, but this is much more important to understand how white has to get away from the checks. So Ronak can play f6 here, queen to e5 check. That is the only counterplay that Nihal has. And well, the main idea for beginner players is to keep your king safe. So you should not go with something like g3 here because then you get queen e2 check. The checks don't stop. You cannot even go king g1 because in queen d4 check, again the check don't stop. So you have to move your king to a square where the check will stop. So something like king h1. So after king h1, black has nothing. Queen captures on f6 is the best move. Queen d6, let's say if he plays it, simply queen g7 is a nice little checkmate. Hope so this is clear. Let's move on to the next one. Yeah, so this is a game between Volodar Murzin and Jonas Bull, again in the same chess league 2024. And yeah, I mean, Jonas has played e6 here to stop knight to b5, which is certainly a very big threat, threat knight c7 checkmate. But has he really stopped it? Well, it turns out that he hasn't, because although his idea is that after, even if Volodar sacrifices his knight on b5, the pawn captures and bishop captures means knight to c6. But what he misses here is a good thing that in chess we call it as intermezzo. So Voladar finds a nice trick here. He plays knight to b5. Now there is knight c7 checkmate threat. So you have to capture, but now he doesn't recapture immediately because then knight c6 or knight d7 would have been really important. So what it does is it eliminates the piece that can come in between. So he eliminates the knight on b8. E5 is more or less forced. Of course, if you capture this, bishop captures, and that would have been a much more pity for the black king. So e5 is what Jonas plays, but now comes bishop captures on just a second. Bishop captures on b5 with the check. The king has to move, and now comes bishop captures on e5. He's up 2 pawns. He's completely winning the game with two bishops and a rook in the center of the board with a king completely open. I don't think this game will even go to the end game. Simply bishop d6 check, bishop c4 check. The king will be right in the open, and checkmate is what follows. Let's move on to the next one. This is again in the Tech Mahindra Global Chess League 24. It's Magnus Carlsen versus Anish Giri. Giri has played rook captures on f7, and well, for all those beginners players here, the king and the queen are in a nice little L pattern. So Magnus does play knight g6 check, but it doesn't end here because it's a grandmaster game. Again, it's very important to understand. Here, there are two choices. First of all, you can sacrifice your queen and then take the queen. But the better option is what Magnus chooses. He plays knight captures on e5. And again, I mean, this is just simple. You have to take the queen here after rook captures on f3, just knight captures on f3. Although this game, I think, ended in a draw. But yeah, certainly the position was 2 pawns up. So, it's pretty playable for white. Black is just the one who is going to defend the position all the time. Let's move on to the next one. This is Anish Giri versus Magnus Carlsen again. Anish has played rook captures on d4. Uh, and just a minute. Let me check. Yeah. Anish has played rook captures on d4, and Magnus has a nice tactic here. So what he does is that he says, okay, the queen is under attack, but the queen is overloaded. The queen has to capture the defender c3 knight and also be in the b file because otherwise the b1 rook will be hanging, and that is what exactly Magnus does. He plays rook captures on uh, you know c3. Queen captures on b8. Of course, you cannot capture the rook, otherwise you lose the rook on b1. So he captures the queen. And now it's very important to understand. If you capture with the knight, there's rook captures on d8, bishop captures and rook captures on d8 will force you know bad position for black. Of course, knight on d8 will be lost because there is a back rank issue. So Carlsen chooses rook captures on b8, which is the correct option. And this is again, it puts pressure on the b1 rook. You have no time to capture on d7, and if you capture rook captures on b8, just knight captures on b8 is sufficient to fetch the victory because the rook is not going to come on d8 anyway. The bishop is guarding the d8 square, the knight is guarding the b7 square, d7 square from the b8 square, and the rook is ready to come back to c8 to defend the back rank in a much more active way. So yeah, that was about all about this game. Let's move on to the next one. It's Vishwanath Anand versus Anish Giri again. Uh, Anand has played queen to f3, and which is certainly a okay move. He's trying to attack the black queen, but what he misses is this even square is still in the queen's control, and the even square is accessible to the knight for a nice little fork. So Anish plays knight to e1 with a check. You have rook captures on e1, queen captures on e1, and this is the winning move. I mean, the threat is rook to f8. There is no counterplay left for white here. You can go with something like a check, but again, just king captures on h6, and there is nothing. Of course, you don't come back. Like for example, for h6 check, if you go king h8, then queen f6 and queen g7 will be a nice little checkmate. So the game is not over until the last piece is captured. But yeah, I mean h6 is queen captures on h6, queen f4, king back to g7. There are no more checks for the f4 queen, and it's a completely winning game for Anish Giri. Let's move on to the next one. This is Ian Krishnov Duda versus Vidit Santosh Gujrati. Vidit has played bishop f8. Now kind of threatening to the d6 rook, but again Yang quickly realizes that the king is, although semi-open, it's very important for the queen and the rook to take the g6 square, and that is why Ian plays the move rook g6 check, pawn captures, and Ian plays the move queen e6 check. Again, if you capture directly, if you hurry with the queen capture g6 idea, bishop g7 will block it. So it's more important to exploit the light squares first with queen e6 with the check. Just a minute, queen e6 with the check, king to h7, and only now do you capture on g6, following checkmate on the h7 square. Let's move on to the next one. It's Sindarov versus Nihal Sarin. This is a very nice example of how a calm position can turn out to be a much more tactical one. So although it seems that Nihal has no way to get out of this is a completely drawish position. All the pawns are locked. Uh, what do you do? But Nihal finds a way here. He plays the move rook c4, and he basically, his idea is that if you capture this, rook captures on d2 would have been the best option. So Sundarov plays King C1, but now he plays Rook to D4, again threatening C4. So Sundarov counters with C4 himself, but now Nihal then passes, Rook captures on C3, and now finally does he play pawn to C4. After Rook captures, he plays Rook captures on D3, Rook captures on D3, and Rook captures on D3, and this is going to be his day. The F3 pawn is under attack. The Rook on C4 is not in time to go to C5, capture A4, and the basic plan is simple for Nihal is just going to capture on the F3, just going to go Rook A3, stay behind the passed pawn as in the rules of endgames, and just going to play F3, and just going to be in time to promote with fun. Let's move on to the next one. This is Vishy Anand versus Carlson Magnus. This is the last one for today's session. Anand is with the white pieces. He uses the tactic of pin, playing e5, and he's putting a lot of pressure on the d6 square. Sorry, not with the bishop like that, with the bishop like that. And yeah, what does Magnus have? Well, Magnus has a very nice intermezzo. He plays a move queen to g5, now attacking the g2, mainly threatening a checkmate on g2, and only now when the queen is outside the fire lane of the bishop, he does take on e5. He's up a pawn and he's completely in a good position. Again, white is the one who is going to fight for the pawn deficit. Uh, I feel that this weakness can certainly be explored, but at grandmaster level, I mean, they play too accurate chess, so this game probably ended in a draw because of the opposite color bishop scheme. I mean, opposite color bishop end games are very difficult to win. So if this game has to be won by black, it has to be certainly finished in the middle game itself. So yeah, that was some of the tactics in the Global Chess League Tech Mahindra 2024. And I hope you guys enjoyed this quick recap and session, crash session like of thing, which I would like to say. But yeah, just a quick recap of this tactical opportunities that these players made in their games. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys liked it. Do subscribe to our academy channel.